Now, so in the previous session, we have discussed about creating Apex classes, and we have discussed how to create an Apex class by using standard navigation, and how can we create the Apex class by using the developer console, and what are the differences that we have between these two editors upon creating the class, what kind of benefits that we have in developer console, and what restrictions that we have in standard navigations we have discussed in the previous session. Now, so let's see. Today we are going to be discussing about the concept of objects. As of now, we have defined an Apex class. So now whenever we are defining an Apex class, we are defining few members inside it. Inside the class, we can define few members. Those members may be variables, procedures, functions, properties, constructors, all these things we can mix together inside a class. So by using all these members, we are implementing our own custom business logics. So based on our application requirement, we can implement our own custom business logics okay, by using this Apex classes. Now, so once the business logic is ready, then how can we invoke that? How to access the business logic? How to access those numbers? How to access those variables? How to access those procedures, functions, properties, and all these things? In this case, in order to invoke your class members, in order to access the class members, we are using the help of a reference or a key or an instance that is called as object. So that already we have discussed, once a class has been defined with the required members, then we can able to access those class members with the help of object. So now in this case, what we can do with the help of this object? Through this object, we can access each and every class member. We can access each and every class member with the help of object, and then we can access those members. We can assign the values for the variables. We can retrieve the values from the variables as well. So because whenever we are defining the variables inside the class, by default, the variables doesn't have any values. We haven't assigned any values for the variables. If I'm not assigning any value, what is the default value stored by Salesforce? Null. Salesforce will store the default value as null. So now I don't want to store null value. I want to assign my own value. Depends upon my requirement. Based on my business needs, I want to assign some different values for my variables. In this case, how can we assign the values for these variables? How to retrieve the value from the variables? Okay, now let's see with the practical with the help of objects. So that here, that's what I told you. A general example, class is like as a locked cupboard. So we have a cupboard. So now in that cupboard, we have placed some valuable items over there. Property, documents, jewelry, money, gold, everything we have placed inside that, we have make a lock. Like the similar passion, we have created a class. In that class, we have placed some valuable functionalities like our variables, procedures, functions, properties, constructors, all these things we have placed inside the class, which contains the business logics. Now, suppose if you want to use those valuable items, then we need to unlock that cupboard first. In order to unlock that, we need a key. Based on the key, we can unlock the cupboard, we can access those items. Like the similar passion, in order to access that class members, we need a reference. We need a key, we need an instance that is also called as object. So with the help of this object, we can enter into the class, we can access each and every class member. We can assign the value, we can retrieve the values also from the class members. The facility is available over here. Now, So now here in this case, in order to access those class members, we are using the help of objects. Through object, we can access each and every class member, we can assign the values, we can retrieve the values also. Now, then how to create the object of a class? How many objects we can create per a class? Only one or multiple? Multiple also. For a class, we can create multiple objects also. Now tell me in this case, whenever we are going to be creating multiple objects of the class, then memory will be allocating for what? For class or for objects? Object. Memory will be always allocating for objects. So because objects are holding the values for the class members. So that here to hold these values, it requires some memory. So memory will be always reserving for the objects, not for the classes. Okay, now. So now here in this case, once the values has been getting assigned, we can retrieve the values also with the help of the object. So here, as part of object-oriented programming, in order to deal with the class members, we need to use the help of objects. Previously, we have discussed the concept of arrays. If you want to deal with the elements, we need the help of index positions. Based on the index, we can assign. Based on the index, we can retrieve the values. Like the similar fashion here also, to assign the value, to retrieve the value from the class member, we need a reference that is called as objects. Through objects, we can assign, we can retrieve the values. Then how to create the object of the class? And then what will happen behind the screen upon creating the object? Now let me explain. Okay, clear up to this one? Next. Let me explain the concept here. Now, for example, I have a class. My class name is employee helper. Okay, my class name is employee helper. In this class, I have defined so many variables to hold the employee details. In order to store the employee related data, I have defined some variables inside this class like employee code, employee age, employee name, contact number, and the title, that means designation, email ID, department name, and the current company name, current CTC, birth date, joining date, active status, everything. So now here we have defined an employee helper class which contains a collection of variables which can be used to hold the employee details. Okay, now. So now once the class has been getting defined, how can we create the object of the class? So what is the syntax we used to follow in order to create the object of the class? Now let's see one by one here. In order to create the object of the class, I'm using this syntax. Syntax. We have to specify the class name and then specify the object name equals to new class name. This is the syntax we used to follow. In order to create the object of the class, we are using this syntax. This is the syntax we used to follow. Class name space object name equals to new class name. Now, this is the syntax. Then what exactly this syntax indicates? Now, let me explain. So now basically, this is a class name. It is indicating what? Name of that Apex class for whom you want to create the object here. Now, it is indicating name of the Apex class. It is indicating the Apex class name. Apex class name for whom you want to create the object. Now, the second part, it is indicating object name. That means the name of the object. Name of the object here. With what name you want to create the object of the class. Okay, with what name you want to create the object of the class. Now, we have to specify the new keyword. Basically, new keyword is taking care of what? Memory allocation, right? It will be reserving the memory over here. Memory allocation will be taken care by the new keyword. Like for example, when you observe this syntax here, if you observe up to this part, this will be looking like as what? No, we are not using any square braces to indicate it as an array. This is having like as class name, object name. That means what? For example, I'm writing like this. Integer, some x. Integer is what? Generally, data type. Now, whatever the data types we have discussed in Apex programming, it may be primitive, it may be a subject, all the data types are nothing but ready-made classes. Integer is a class, decimal is a class, date is a class, boolean is a class, id is a class, object is a class, account is a class, lead is a class, position underscore underscore, anything. Whatever the data types we have discussed till now, including okay, primitive, including a subject type, each and every data type is nothing but class, ready-made classes. Now, this is nothing but the class, this is nothing but the reference name. Like the similar way, here class name and then reference name we have written. This is like as object. Now tell me in this case, if I am writing integer x, how much memory will be reserved? 4 bytes of memory because it's a fixed size given by Apex programming. Here I'm defining my class over here. For example, I'm giving the class name as employee helper. Employee helper, some E. I'm writing like this here. Employee helper is what? My own class. In that class, I have defined that variable. So now this is like as a variable over here. For this variable, it will be reserving the memory. How much memory it has to be get reserved? Dynamic memory allocation. It has to calculate the memory dynamically at runtime. How? With the help of new keyword here. Now, so now this new keyword will be directly going to this employee helper class. Now to go to the employee helper class, in this class it will verify how many variables we have defined, how many types of variables we have defined. It will be calculating everything over here based on the variables and the data type of the variables, how much memory needs to be get reserved. It will do the calculation that much of memory will be getting reserved. For that reason, we are using memory allocation will be done with the help of new keyword. New keyword is going to be reserving the memory allocation for this object. Because this is my object name, for this object memory will be getting reserved. Okay. Now, next one. This last part, including braces. Including braces here. Now, this last part is called as default constructor. This last part is called as default constructor. So what do you mean by this default constructor? What it will do? Basically, default constructor is going to be assigning default values for the class members. Once the memory has been getting reserved, in that memory it will be assigning the default values for each and every member over here. But as of now, we haven't assigned any value, so it will be reserving the default value as null. Clear? Understood the concept now? Now, let's see. Now, for example, here. Assume that I'm creating the object of this employee helper class. This is my employee helper class. I'm creating the object of this class. I'm creating the object of this class. For example, employee helper, I'm giving the object name as e-helper. You can give any name, whatever you want for the object. Equals to new employee helper. Now, employee helper, e-helper equals to new employee helper. That means I'm creating the object of this class. So now this is the object name. This is the class name for whom we have created the object. New keyword is for memory allocation. Now this default constructor is going to be assigning some default values for the class members. Okay. Now, so now here in this case, let's see. Now, whenever we are going to be creating the object of this class, now the new keyword is going to be reserving the memory for the object. New keyword is going to be reserving the memory for the object here. Now here in this case, how much memory it will reserve dynamically at runtime, new keyword will go to that, okay, e-helper. That means e-helper is a variable for which it has to allocate that memory. Now this variable will be of type what? Employee helper class type. So it will go to the employee helper class. It will check how many variables are available, what type of variables are available. It will calculate dynamically at runtime that much of memory will be reserving for this particular object here. That is the functionality of new keyword. Clear? Now, suppose for example, assume that okay, now it requires some 60 bytes of memory. In that case, a new keyword is going to be allocating 60 bytes of memory over here. It will allocate some 60 bytes of memory. Assume that this is the 60 bytes of memory here. Now it is going to be holding that some 60 bytes of memory. Now this memory is going to be reserving for this particular okay, object. Memory will be reserving for this object. Now here in this case, now once a memory has been getting reserved, in this memory it is going to be storing the default value for this class members. Now in that case, who will do that? Now the default constructor will come into the picture. It is going to be assigning the default value as null for each and every class member. Here we have defined some variables inside my class like employee code. For this one, it will assign the value as null. Employee name, it will assign the value as null. Employee age, it will assign the value as null. Designation, it will assign the value as null. Contact number, it will assign the value as null. Email address will be assigned as null. Birth date will be assigned as null. And then joining date will be assigned as null. Is active will be assigned as null. For each and every member, it is going to be assigning the default value as null. Now this will be taken care by the default constructor. Default constructor is assigning some default value as null for each and every member. So now the default memory has been reserved 60 bytes, and then it is going to be allocating the default value as null for each and every memory here. Now, so now here once the variables has been getting okay assigned with the default values, do we have any chance to assign by our own values for these variables? Yes. How to access these values here? I want to assign employee code as 45006. Then what we can do? We need to assign the value for this particular variable over here. In order to assign the value for this variable, we need to collect this starting memory address, right? This memory address is available where? Inside that object name. Inside the object name, we have this memory location. So based on the object name, we can go to the memory location. In this memory location, so many values are available. For which variable you want to assign the value? Employee code. So that we can specify e-helper dot employee code equals to value. E-helper dot employee name equals to value. E-helper dot employee age equals to value we can assign. So in order to assign the value for each and every member of the class, we are using the help of object. Object name dot member name. Clear? Now let's see in this case. Assigning the values. Now I would like to assign the value for these members. Syntax we can specify object name dot member name equals to value. Now I would like to assign some values for these variables. For example, I'm creating this, I'm accessing the member. E-helper dot employee code. I'm assigning the value 5600902. I'm assigning some value here. And then I'm assigning the value. E-helper dot employee age, some 32. E-helper dot employee name, some Ram Kumar. E-helper dot designation. Now he is a project lead. E-helper dot. Now the contact number. I'm assigning some value. Like that, we can assign the value for each and every member with the help of this object. Object name dot member name. We can able to access. If it is an array, we are using the help of index position. If it is a class, we need to use the help of object name. Clear? Understood the concept now? Next. Once the values has been getting assigned, how can we retrieve the values? How to access these values now? Hmm. Do we have any indexes over here? No indexes. Hmm. Then what is the syntax? Object name dot member name. That's it. Simple. Now we can able to use this. Let me show you how can we represent these values. For example, I would like to show system dot debug. Employee code is, what is the object name here? Now I'm giving the syntax. Now, for example, I would like to print these values. System dot debug employee code is e-helper dot employee code. System dot debug employee name is e-helper dot employee name. System.debug designation is eHelper dot designation. System.debug birth date is eHelper dot birth date. System.debug contact number is eHelper dot contact number. Like that, we can able to access each and every member whatever you want. Okay. So now here we need to create the class first. Once the class has been getting defined, then we need to create the object of the class. Once the object has been getting created, assign the values for each and every member by using this syntax, and then we can retrieve the values from the class by using the help of objects. So in order to deal with the class members, always we have to use the help of objects. Without the object, we can't access the class members, we can't deal with them. Okay? Understood the concept now? Next. Now, make a note of this code. Let me give that note points over here. Object. Server time. Okay, server memory location, not in our local system. Our local system doesn't have anything. Now, object creation. Creating objects. Once the class has been defined with the required members, then to access the class members, we have to use the help of objects. Object is nothing but an instance or reference or key which can be used to access the class members. Which can be used to access the class members. By using object, we can access each class member and we can assign the values and we can retrieve the values from the class members. And we can retrieve the values from the class members. Now, a class can have one or more objects. Each object will hold a set of values for the class members. A class can have one or more objects. Each object will hold a set of values for the class members. Hence, memory will be always reserved for the objects. Now, syntax. Class name and the object name equals to new class name. Employee helper, eHelper equals to new employee helper. Employee helper, eHelper 2 equals to new employee helper. Done with this? Now, note. While creating the object of the class, while creating the object of the class, the default constructor will assign the null value to all the class members by default. Now, we can access these members, with the help of the object as below. Assigning the values. Now, we can assign the values for each class member as below. Syntax, we can specify object name dot member name equals to value. Object name dot member name equals to value. Now we can specify eHelper dot employee code. I'm giving some value. eHelper dot employee age. I'm giving some value. eHelper dot employee name. Contact number. Like that, we can assign the values. We can retrieve the values from the class members as below. Syntax is we can specify the object name dot member name. For example, now employee code is eHelper dot employee code. System dot debug employee name is eHelper dot employee name. Contact number is contact number. Like that, we can specify. Constructor will be allocating the memory for the variables. It won't construct any consume any memory. Its only responsibility is it has to assign the value. That's it. Yes. Sorry. Constructor will be calling automatically upon object creation. You are creating the object, right? Last you are writing class name braces. That is nothing but invoking the constructor. Constructors are called automatically. We no need to call them. Done with this? Now, let's see with the practical use case. Done everyone? Now. So let's take a small use case. Now I would like to define a class in order to store project details. So now as part of the organization, we're working on so many projects. Each project will be holding some specific details. Like every project contains a project code, project title, that means name of the project, and the team size, how many members are working in the project. And then the client name and the contact number, email ID of the client, domain name, and then we can able to store all these details. And along with that, we can store the project start date, end date of the project also here. What is the budget cost? What will be the cost of the project here? And then what is the progress of the project? Whether the project is currently in progress or not, to indicate that we are using the help of these variables. So I want to define an Apex class to store this project information inside it, and then I want to create the object. I want to assign the values. I want to print those values also. Now the complete program I would like to implement. I want to create a class. I want to define the members inside the class. I want to create the object. I want to assign the values. I would like to retrieve the values also. Everything I would like to do. How to do that? Okay, now let's see with the practical. Okay, now take a small use case. Write an Apex program to define an Apex class. Write an Apex program to define an Apex class to hold the project details, and assign the values for the class members, and print the values on the debug log file. And print the values on the debug log file. Now, let me prepare an Apex class. I'm going to my Salesforce org now. I'm going to my Salesforce org. And now I would like to define an Apex class. How to define an Apex class? Now let's see. Now tell me which way you would like to prefer to create an Apex class. Standard navigation or developer console? Developer console. Why? Easy to access means what in terms of what? What benefits you have observed? Intelligence, okay, right? Right. That means
Auto save function.
auto compile option, not auto save, auto compile option. So
Auto
both
compile, yeah.
the compilation both will happening parallelly at the same time. Okay. Now let's see. I'm going to the developer console. I'm creating an Apex class. New Apex class, projects helper. I'm creating an Apex class with the name projects helper. Now, so this is the class which I have prepared over here. Now in this class, I would like to define the members. In order to hold the project related details, I would like to define these members over here. Then, so what kind of members we need to define? Now let's see. Now tell me here, I would like to define the members to hold the project details. I'm going to be storing the project code that will be of type integer. So I'm defining a member project code and then team size. How many people are working for this project? Next. String project title, client name, domain name, email address, contact number, and the location of the client. Okay, whether he is US client, UK client, domestic client, or whatever. We are storing all these details. Public date, start date of the project, and the end date of the project. Public decimal, budget cost. Public boolean is in progress. Simply you can specify is in progress. Okay. I would like to check whether the project is already in progress or is it started or not to indicate that I'm using this is in progress. I want to pass true or false values. This is my class code here which I have prepared. So now I have saved this class code. Now my class code has been saved successfully inside this. Okay. My class code has been saved inside my metadata repository successfully. Clear up to this one? Now. So now once the class has been getting prepared with the required members, then what is the next step then? Create the object where we can write that piece of code. where we can write that piece of code. Hmm. Outside the class? No. Inside the class, what is the need of object? Hmm. Okay. Then where do we need to create that object?
Inside the class.
Hmm? Inside the class or outside the class? Why inside the class? Generally, objects are for what? To access the members from outside of the class here. Then, then what is the need of preparing the object inside the class? Hmm. Now, so now here in this case, let's see. Okay, now let's see here. So now, for example, here, this is a class which I have prepared with the required members. Now, these members are not having any values. So now I would like to assign some values. I want to get those values. For that reason, I need a key. Okay, I need a key here. Now, the key should be always outside. Will you make a lock to the cupboard, okay, by placing the key inside that? No, right? Now, so same scenario here also. We need to create the object outside of the class. Where we can do that? What is the use of object? We are going to be invoking the class. That means we can access the class. We can access each and every member. We can assign. We can retrieve. So that means we are going to be executing that class code. Execution should be always done from execute anonymous window, not from developer console. Developer console is just to write to save the code. That's it, not to execute. That's what I told you here. Whenever we are going to be discussing about that, okay, the fundamental concepts of Apex programming. Upon writing the code, I have given some mechanisms. Upon executing the code, I have given some mechanisms to you. In that case, execution of the code should be always from execute anonymous window, not from developer console. Developer console is just to write to save the class code. That's it, not to execute. So object creation should be always done from execute anonymous window. Now, this is my class name. I'm going to the execute anonymous window, create the object of the class. How to create the object of the class? My class name is project helper. I'm indicating p helper equals to new project helper. I'm creating the object of the class here. Once object has been getting prepared, how can we access the members here? Assign the values for the class members. Okay, assigning the values for the class members. How to assign object name dot member name? So I'm indicating p helper dot project to code. I'm assigning some value. Now I'm assigning some value. P helper dot project name or project title. Title, right? Title equals to I'm indicating as insurance processing service. P helper dot team size. I'm giving us some 8 numbers. Client name. I'm indicating the client name over here. Farmers Insurance Incorporation. P helper dot location. I'm indicating as now he's a US client. P helper dot contact number. Or else we can specify +1 800 3344. P helper dot email address. Now here I'm indicating Jesse at the rate some farmers.com. P helper dot domain name. I'm giving the domain as it's a insurance domain. P helper dot budget cost. Because some 4 crores 50 lakhs. P helper dot start date. Today's date. That means today we are starting this project. If you want to collect the today's date, we have to use system dot today. System dot today is the ready-made method which will collect the today's Salesforce server date, not our local system date. Okay, system dot today method will collect the today's Salesforce server date, not our local system date here. Because for my local system, I can set any date also, past date also, future date also, I can set. Because I am the administrator, I have that rights. But I don't want to change the date here. I want to collect exactly the today's date. So that we are using system dot today. End date. P helper dot end date. Now, client has given 4 months of time over here. From today onwards, 4 months of time. Then what I will do is system dot today dot add months of 4. That means I'm collecting today's date, and for this today's date, I'm adding add months of 4. That means from now onwards, please add 4 months. If you want to add some 40 days, then we can specify add days of 40. If the client has given 2 years of time for your construction, then we can specify add years of 2. Like that. What you would like to add? Days, months, or years. So that we can use add days, add months, add years. Now, so that we can able to prepare that. Suppose sometimes you can raise a question, sir, client has given one specific date, has given some specific date. Like as he asked us to complete the project by June some 27. How to prepare that? In this case, if you want to prepare your own specific date, we can specify date dot new instance. Here we can specify the year number over here, and then month, and then date. We can pass like this: year, comma month, comma date. If you want to prepare one specific date, it may be old one, it may be future one also. Any date also we can prepare by using date dot new instance. But don't type the date like this, like as some 26/02/2024 like this. Don't pass the date like this here because it's a string. Because string values we can't assign to date type over here. Date formats are different, string formats are different. It will show the error message illegal assignment from string to date. Let's see. When we try to assign the value like this here, I'm assigning the value like as 26/02/2024. When you try to execute this piece of code, it will show the error message over here. Budget cost variable is not there. Okay. Now, when you click on execute button, it will show the error message illegal assignment from string to date. It won't allow. So that here we need to pass the date value like this. Okay. Now, next one, I would like to specify p helper dot is in progress. Which one? We can specify this format. Instead of writing this one, we can able to write like this also. Instance means no, it won't allow. It will show the error message. Date is a ready-made class. Inside this date class, we have a method called as a new instance, which will prepare the date instance based on these values. Okay, first of all, we have to pass the year number, then month number, and then date value. Okay, this is the format we need to pass. Okay, next. Now we have assigned the values for this particular members over here. Then we can able to retrieve the values. Retrieve the values, okay, from the class members. How can we retrieve the values from the class members? Now let's see. Here also we can use that same system.debug project code is now p helper dot project code system.debug project name is I would like to represent. Everything should be done from execute anonymous window. I'm representing client. Developer console will save the code. Your class code will be saving permanently here. Okay? Sorry? Budget cost is budget cost. Now, contact number. I want to print the email address. Email address. Now, project start date. We can specify p helper dot start date. Project end date. P helper dot end date. I'm indicating project is in progress. I would like to indicate p helper dot is in progress. These are the members I would like to print. Clear? So now we need to assign the values for each and every member. We can retrieve the values. Suppose if I'm not assigning any value, if I'm not printing any value over here, simply I'm creating the object. Then what members are available? Let me show you. System.debug project details are simply we can specify p helper. All the variables values I would like to show in one shot. So that whenever I'm giving the object name in this particular object, whatever the members are available, all the member values will be getting visible at a time by separating a comma over here. Let's see. Just we have created the object here. Whenever we are creating the object, automatically for each and every member, it will assign the value as null. Click on execute button. Select the debug only. See, here is the project helper over here. Budget cost will be null. Client name null, contact number null, domain name null, email ID, end date, is in progress, location, and the project code, and the start date, team size, everything will be null. By default, okay, the Salesforce is going to be assigning the default value as null with the help of default constructor. So that I don't want to assign null values, okay, I would like to represent some values by my own. For that one, we are going to be representing these details. Okay, we are assigning our own values. We are printing those values also on the debug line file. Clear? Click on execute. My request has been sent to the server. Select the debug only. Now we can see these details. This is the project code value, project name, client name, budget cost, contact number, email ID, start date, end date, and then it will be indicating whether this project is in progress or not. But here it is showing the date values along with the zeros here. I don't want these zeros, I would like to eliminate them. For that reason, just you can go to that start date, use that method called as dot format method. Dot format, here also dot format method. I don't want to represent the zeros. Please eliminate those zeros. Just you can show date values to me here. Now click on execute. Select the debug one. Now we are able to represent this record values also. They have given 4 months of time. So now 26th February will be the start date and the 26th June will be the end date of the project. 4 months of time it will be adding over here. Clear? Now, in that case here, what I did is I have removed this code. Or else you can do one thing simply. Just you can able to select these lines of code, click on execute highlighted button. Only we can see that particular piece of code. Okay? Make a note of this class code. And then execution also. Complete. If you want, I will share this one. Your choice. If you want to write, then you can write. No issues.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, could you please repeat that date dot new instance which you were explaining, sir? What is that new instance for?
No. Date.new instance is a method which
Mm-hmm.
is used to create your own specific date. Suppose if there is no specific months, no specific years, if you want to prepare one specific date, for example, I want to prepare my birth date, that will be very
Mm-hmm.
past date. Now, that years back, 35 years back, 20 years back, if you want to prepare one specific date, then we can go with the help of date.new instance. In that one, we need to pass the three values. First will be the year, comma, second one month, comma, third one date. Automatically, whatever the values we have supplied with that one date will be getting prepared by Salesforce. We can store into a date variables.
Okay, so in that bracket,
Okay.
we must provide the birth date, right, sir?
Yes, right.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir.
Hours, hours and minutes and seconds. It won't take the current time because we have given the date, right? That the system that today it will collect the today's date. We are not using time. We are using today. The date will be starting from where? From 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. It will prepare that. Done with the class code? Now. Ex- Clear? Now, so now this is the concept of creating classes, creating the objects, assigning the values, and retrieving the values. Okay. Now in tomorrow's session, we are going to discuss a new feature called as ORM, object relationship and the mapping. Then what exactly the ORM feature, how to use ORM to interact with your Salesforce objects through programmatically, how to insert the records, how to insert a single record, how to insert bulk records, how to insert related records, we'll see by using ORM concept here. Okay, don't miss that feature, that is very, very important. So now before coming to the ORM, just you can refer this today's example. Okay, defining the class, creating the object, assigning the values, retrieving the values. Okay, these are four steps are very, very important. Same steps we are going to do in ORM concept also, nothing different. Okay, thank you. But do the practice on these features.